When we decided to make Invisalign our differentiator, my partner, Dahlia, she's really the one that's good with money. I'm a techie, okay? So we complement each other pretty well. She gave me 6 months to ramp up everything to get the highest discount level, because that's the only way she said that we were going to do that, right?
To get us spending as much as you can.
Right. And I did. And so we've been at the highest 44, 45% discount for a long time now.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs podcast. Today, we're joined by somebody who's going to talk a lot about some cool stuff in your practice. You're going to learn a lot about Invisalign, Invisalign First, running a successful practice, the likes of which you all wish you had. As well as balancing, amazing professional and personal life with some cool ways. And so please join me in welcoming Dr. Regina Blevins to the show. Welcome, Regina.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, every time I see your name, I just want to pronounce it like the capital of Saskatchewan, which is, I think, Regina.
I grew up with that, having to correct people on a regular basis. So
I'm just going to say this.
And I'm in Minnesota, which is as close to Canada as you can get, right?
Yeah, but it's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Saskatchewan is not directly above where you live, correct?
No.
Yeah. So anybody who calls you Regina is just giving you a hard time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, anyway, it's such a joy to have you here. I've spoken to you in the past. You're someone I really respect, and I think you're such a great wealth of information on so many subjects that we'll dive into today.
Well, I always say yes to you, Glenn, because you build my ego, bro.
Yeah, I'm only telling you things that are true. And the truth of the matter is there's two isms that I think are worthwhile. If someone's younger out there and hearing this for the first time, there's two isms that I've learned along the way. The first is you can really go a whole lot further with the weaknesses you have if you surround yourself with really good people. And
100%.
And doing this podcast allows me to surround myself with some really, really good people week in and week out that I'll leave, hopefully like the listeners, I will leave this podcast interview hopefully a better person than the one I came in because of the things that you're going to teach me, the things I'm going to learn from you, and the introspection I'm going to have from listening to the things you have to say. And the second ism was one that I heard about when Gene Kelly, the great dancer of the 20th century, who unfortunately I'm willing to wager there are many out there listening who've never heard of Gene Kelly. But
I'm not one of those. I know exactly who you're talking about.
And if they've ever heard of Fred Astaire, allegedly his final words on his deathbed were Gene Kelly. Those were supposedly his last two words. Gene Kelly was one of the greatest dancers. Singing in the Rain made, is you can't ever recreate that magic. But he had a famous saying. They said, "What makes you such a great dancer?" And his answer was, "I just make my partner look good." And at the end of the day, you say I build your ego up. I'm just saying truths and honesties. And again, you're the superstar. You're carrying the show. I'm just making you look good, which makes me look better. So
you're too kind. You're always so kind.
Just being honest. So as I start every episode, let's start with just saying, how did you end up where you are now? Take as much or as little time as you want to tell your story of how did you end up being, the juggernaut practice lecturer, everything that you are today.
One phrase, it's kind of a cliche, but I always get out of my comfort zone. I'm not afraid to do that. But I started out after high school being a on-the-job trained dental assistant, okay? And got a scholarship from high school to go to a hygiene school. So I was working part-time at a dentist's office while I was going to hygiene school. And there was a doctor there that worked at the clinic that said, why don't you go to dental school, because you have an aptitude for this and you're good with people. And I didn't realize then what being good with people meant to the career, but it's huge, right? And I told him I couldn't do it because I didn't have any money, right? And he said, never let that stand in the way of you, going that next step and fulfilling a dream. So I was very lucky that the hygiene school, Mott Community College, was right across the diag from University of Michigan Flint. So I would get out of my hygiene classes and walk across the diag and take the prereqs for dental school.
Nice.
Got into dental school because of affirmative action. Okay. I didn't even have my bachelor's. I didn't even get it finished, but they needed women to get the affirmative action money.
So you could actually get into dental school without a bachelor's degree.
You could then, if you were a female and were at least partially, I don't want to disparage any of the women that got in with that, but they did lower the requirements so they could get women started. Okay. And so I was one of the few women that had basic qualifications. I was already in dentistry. I had most of my prerequisites. And so I got in. And now it wasn't the most welcoming environment, right? Because a lot of people did not want women in the profession at that time. But I think looking back on it now, you can say that we are pretty successful and we've done well with it. And then in dental school, I thought I wanted to be an oral surgeon. And when I went into a GPR residency, they paired me with an orthodontist, and I loved the ortho much better. So I went that route instead.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't like
Yeah.
ortho more, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Where did you grow up? Minnesota?
No, I grew up, my family kind of went from place to place, but I started out in Baltimore and then went to Flint, Michigan. And I went from U of M Flint to Ann Arbor. And then ortho, I got in at Minnesota and I stayed in Minnesota.
Got it. So you ended up training there and staying there.
Yeah.
Nice. And so if you can tell everybody a little bit about your practice life right now, number of practices, doctors
Well,
you work with.
that's kind of an organic story too. Another gal that got out of ortho about 2 years after me, we both had our own individual practices, mostly because the associate positions that were being offered in the area were kind of this attitude. This will be part-time because, you're going to have to focus on your family. So I'll give you a day a week, kind of a thing.
Right.
So we both opened our own offices, and we got to be friends because she covered my maternity leave. Okay. And then I covered hers. And then shortly after that, we went in together to buy a satellite practice from a guy that retired. And from then on, we kind of formed a partnership, and we've grown it to 13 locations.
Wow. 13 locations is a lot,
It's
right?
a lot. Yeah.
I mean, there are OSOs and DSOs out there that don't have 13 locations. And so, again, for those out there who may be experienced and have one or two or three locations or what have you, or maybe somebody who's newer, what lessons have you learned through the 13 practice process that
Well,
you could share with anybody?
I'm going to quote you. You got to surround yourself with good people. Our practice manager is a gal that was mom of 3 boys that we treated. And so we knew her quite well. And she came in. She had been an assistant, not for us, but she wasn't working anymore. And she's been with us about 25 years now. And we have family that works with us. I have a sister that's front desk, and my son's my TC. 2 of the associate doctors that work for us were residents in Minnesota that I taught because I teach there on Tuesdays. And it's about the people, I think. If you have people you can trust, they'll go that extra mile for you as well if they're emotionally invested in the business.
And you found somebody who already knew your business model a little bit because they'd been through it 3 times with their boys, which I think it's worth sort of taking a quick little detour about hiring, because with 13 locations, how many total employees would you say you employ now, give or take 10%?
Right around 60. And
Wow.
again, not all of them are full time, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of dental assistants are juggling families and other commitments as well. All of our offices aren't open, 5 days a week. So there are some that are close enough that they're shared between a couple different offices. So that's one way we kind of keep the overhead down a little bit.
So that was my question. You have 60 employees. I honestly was expecting a higher number than that, but I suspect a large part of that is not just that you're not open 5 days a week and that you have, the kinds of employees you have. I'm willing to wager that the share of aligners plays a role.
It's about 80%, depending
Right.
on which location. Yeah.
And
And
that's one of those conversations that, in all of our Facebook groups and everything online, the conversations revolve around how expensive aligners are, right? But would you agree that if you can scale it, and I think the most dangerous place to be is in the middle, right? If you
oh,
don't,
I 100% agree with that. Yes. When we decided to make Invisalign our differentiator, my partner Dahlia, she's really the one that's good with money. I'm a techie, okay? So we complement each other pretty well.
great.
She gave me 6 months to ramp up everything to get the highest discount level because that's the only way she said that we were going to do that, right?
To get us spending as much as you can.
Yeah, right. And I did, and so we've been at the highest what is it, 44, 45% discount for a long time now. So that was a good strategy. We were in pain for a few months, but then when we got over it, we've never looked back. But she is a negotiator, so I have that in my pocket too. So she'll wheel and deal and get good prices on scanners and different things like that.
That's awesome. So this is going to be pure conjecture, and you're not the money person, you're the tech person. But do you think, all things equal, that, and again, I am not, I have no money vested whatsoever in any aligner companies. I've got no relationship. So the question is truly an honest one. Do you think at the end of the day, because of the number of aligners you do, 80%, right? You're working with a lot less assistants than you would if you were braces. And there are people who we know, friends of mine, who've been on record, I will never be a mostly aligner practice because blah, 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 it's the cost. Do you feel at the end of the day you come out ahead financially because you're 80% aligners, that the amount you're spending in aligners outpaces the amount you would have spent on the additional assistance and support that you would have had? It's a
Yeah,
hard question,
it's a
and that's not
hard
the only reason
question,
and
right?
it's not the only reason to do it. I'm
And
just
it,
asking
and
as a
it's
side note.
it's difficult because I don't have a personal comparison because I didn't do the other.
Right,
That's not the path I went down. But I can say my life is more balanced and I enjoy my practice more. I don't have emergency appointments, they're
right.
rare. I can see a lot more patients in a given day with fewer assistants. And actually, I don't even have to see that many patients now in the office. One of the things that's a win win for our staff and our practice is the virtual appointments, right? So they can get Saturday afternoon, they can get Sunday afternoon appointments. It's a win for my staff because somebody else is watching the kids, the other parent, and they can spend a couple hours doing work from home. And the patients' families love it because they don't have to miss work or school. So that has helped tremendously as well. Kind of scale it without having to increase in office hours and increase staff to cover
Right.
it.
And you took me down another path. I mean, like there's like three paths I still haven't gone down with you on stuff you've already said. So we're going to come back. I want to come back to the virtual appointments in just a little bit. But talking about your team, and I'm going to even go back a little bit less than that. Scalability. I think scalability is a very big deal to talk about, because I've talked a great deal about my joy of dental monitoring and bringing that into my practice, which then led me to starting remote response to help make it so your best team members are not the ones sitting in front of a dashboard all day long.
Yeah.
Uh, so you can save money and get better results there and put them where they belong. But because now of remote response, I'm having a lot of conversations with a lot of people uh, about a lot of technology, because if they're not using dental monitoring, they can't use remote response. So I've got to have a conversation about dental monitoring with them, about the benefits. And one of the more common conversations I have, and really something that really dawned on me about 6 months ago is that the most dangerous place to be with any technology, whether it's scanners, aligners, monitoring, remote response, orthophi, whatever it could be that you could think of out there, the most dangerous place to be is in the middle. Because
Yeah.
if you don't use the technology, no harm, no foul. You didn't spend any money. You're
Right.
no worse off than you were. You may not be efficient, but you're not losing anything by not, you didn't invest in it. If you go all in, like you're doing 80% share of chair, or Dave Boschkin, great example, right? 99, 98% share of chair aligners, you're working with so much fewer people. You're seeing so much less patients. You can work in a far smaller space. Your whole business model is truly a
Different.
different business model on every level. You
Completely.
benefit from all the economies of scale. And yeah, you're spending a lot of money, but you're seeing a huge payback, which I would contend
And
you're coming
volume.
out ahead financially by droves. It's the people who say, 10% of my practice is aligners. 15% of my practice is aligners. And I go,
They're
well, what
paying they're
just
paying the most for everything then.
exactly. And again, I always wondered that one, because for those of us who've been on the other side of the wall, who again I do a lot of aligners, right? I've been top 1% for 6 years now. And I don't know my exact share of chair, but I treat predominantly adults, me, my partner, Erin Albritton, she treats a lot of the kids. And even there I use a ton of aligners. But when you look at the usage of aligners in someone's practice, I'm always curious to know why people don't use more. And I'm being agnostic on brand. Why are people, you teach a lot, why do people not use aligners as a predominant form of tooth movement correction? Because aside from the exposed or ectopic tooth, which makes you really have to come up with some workarounds, I would say 95% of the cases, I can get a better, faster result using aligners
Yeah.
than I can with braces in my hands, with way more control.
I think what happens, Glenn, in most cases, is that they walk out of residency with a bias that aligners only treat limited cases, minor movements. Okay, so
Do you think that's still the case today? That they're
absolutely,
really that they're leaving residency feeling as if aligners can't treat comprehensive cases,
I
generally
do.
speaking, as well
I
as
do.
braces?
Yes.
Wow.
I think that there's a huge bias coming out of the education system. I think that that will change over time as people showcases and teach more and more. But think about it right now. Where's the majority of the learning happening about aligners? It's happening outside of the universities. Now, some universities are a little bit progressive, like Minnesota has me there lecturing about aligners. I know Donna Galante, I think she lectures for Harvard, and University of Pacific. Sandy Ty goes there. Bob Boyd went there for years, but they're the exception, not the rule. It's a very small part of the academic curriculum in most orthodontic programs. But again, I think that'll change. I always tell the funny story that when I graduated from orthodontic school, there were a few professors that were still insisting that we put bands around every tooth, including the anterior teeth, because
Answer, yeah.
those things, those bracket things, were never going to be able to control tooth position the way a band would. Okay, and it took a while for we stopped putting bands on front teeth, but we still were doing it on bicuspids and molars. Then we gave up bicuspids and we're doing it just on molars. And now bands are the exception for most practices, not the rule, right?
Yeah.
And
I can't
aligners, I
even
think, are
remember.
going down that same path.
I can't remember the last band I put on a tooth. And again, you got a lower first molar, a lower six that's got a metal, a gold crown on it.
Right?
I'll band the tooth,
Yeah,
right? But
me
my
too.
expanders, all of my
Rare.
appliances are 3D printed.
Yeah,
They're printed metal, no spacers, right?
yeah,
Just no separators. Just
yeah.
put them on. but it's truly astounding to me to believe that in today's environment with um, everything that's going on, I would have thought that at this point, the online discussions with, I mean, Orthopreneurs, right? 7,000 orthodontists from 99 countries. You would have thought that that would have permeated into dental schools already because,
Oh,
um,
I don't think it's because the residents don't want the
no,
knowledge.
I'm
And
talking
they're
about the
probably,
faculty.
well,
I get you.
change is hard.
I know. I hear you. It's interesting to me because I always assumed that the reason why more doctors don't scale out more aligners was because of cost, right? And I've heard a lot
Well,
of people say, "Oh, I'm not paying $1,900 or $2,000 for an aligner case when my brackets are $200, and I can't raise my fees higher," which is another discussion altogether,
yeah,
right? Well, let's hit it. Come on, Regina. You and I, we're two people who don't look at limits, right? We
yeah.
don't see limits, we see opportunities. Let's have that discussion real quick about, you know, well, I don't want to pay $2,000 for an aligner case when I can get brackets for $100 and save $1,900 per case.
Okay. Here, I've had this discussion with so many people,
I know.
and I don't want this to sound canned, but when you repeat yourself over and over again, it starts sounding like that, right?
Yeah.
But
But it's
okay,
okay.
if you get to the highest discount level, you're paying almost half that, right?
Right.
Okay, so that helps a lot. But if you save one in office appointment, it negates the lab fee. If you save four, you're making a profit
Over a liner, a
of
bracket.
brackets and wires. Yes.
Yeah. And what I'm about to say may sound even more blasphemous, especially to the academics. You know those orthodontists who get PhDs, Regina?
Yeah, like my daughter's getting.
I know. I had to give a
Yeah,
hard time because Regina's daughter is going to go for ortho PhD. And
yeah,
so, because she wants to get data, she
yeah.
wants to be a great data collector to make a difference in the profession, which is very, very admirable. But going back to the conversation we were just having, this is going to sound blasphemous to a lot of the older school orthodontists out there. If you're younger or newer, or maybe you're experienced and you haven't practiced like this style, imagine a patient comes in, you scan them for aligners, you end up giving them a line. And I'm not even going to get into the progressive approaches being used just for that part of it alone with virtual exams and stuff like that. That you scan them for an aligner, you give them a aligner, you set it up the case yourself, you do everything the way you want. They get their aligner. They got 32 aligners in their first set, right? You use remote monitoring of some sort, and there's varieties out there of how you can do it. And everything tracks perfectly because they had great advice and great suggestions. They did what they're supposed to. And you saw the patient now for their second appointment, or technically third if you don't count new patient, if you count new patient, but you're seeing them for their third appointment, including new patient exam at 8 months. Hopefully 85% of the correction is done at this point, give or take. And now you scan them at that appointment again, and you know, send them on their merry way and they come back. If you've kept the same attachments, right? Life's even easier. But if you're adding attachments, you've seen them now for appointment number 4 to deliver. And if they do what they're supposed to do and you see them 3 months, 4 months later because of your remote monitoring, you've seen them for 5 visits potentially, right? I would be honest in saying that the overwhelming majority of my cases do not finish in 2 sets of aligners. Usually 3 is where I need to get to for
Yep,
that little final, because I treat a lot of adults and that little
yep.
touch up, that one little 1 degree of root tip or
Open
whatever,
contacts. Yeah,
open
yeah.
contacts, open posterior, right?
Occlusal contacts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Depends on how particular you want to be as an orthodontist. I
Yeah.
know that varies, but I'm with you. I'm right at the 3. I call it the golf analogy. We have a fairway, we have a chip shot, and putt in a hole,
I
right?
say the same thing. And I'll even go one step further and say par is 4. I say par
Yeah,
on this hole is 4.
yeah. We
If
try to
if
hit
you
under par if we can, right?
yeah, if you can hit it well and you do a great job, you can get an eagle. You get it in 2. If you do pretty well, probably in 3. And if we get past 4, we're not doing anymore because ain't nothing
Right.
I'm going to get in 5 that I didn't get in 4.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so think about that. If you have 3 sets of aligners for a patient, you can be done in 7 appointments from beginning till end over a period of a year and a half or whatever you want
Yep.
to call that. And again, my practice, because of remote monitoring and because of a lot of aligners, I'm treating a little bit more production today than I did 2 years ago. Um, and I'm doing it with 3 or 4 less team members, right?
Yeah.
I have 4 clinical team members. I've got 1 front desk, 1 TC. That's
Yeah.
my office.
Yeah.
And I could not have done that without digital technology. And then people are throwing in. I did an interview with Brian BMAC, right? Brian, and he talked about how, like, digital technology, not just Invisalign or a Spark or whatever you're using, and not just remote monitoring, but adding in digital brackets, right? Where it comes with an IDB tray. You're just setting the case up, and your team is bonding it the same way they bond attachments.
Yeah,
And
I mean, the few bracket cases we do indirect bonding, right?
yeah,
And I'm actually doing hybrid, okay? Indirect bracketing, if the patient's hygiene's not good or they're tired of wearing their brackets, I'll finish them up with 5 or 6 upper and lower aligner trays. They finish with great gingiva response. Uh, the bite settles. I don't have to do finishing bends. I mean, there's nothing less productive. Now, I'm not saying it's not useful and good for the patient, but there's nothing less productive than doing 2 little finishing bends that the patient has to come into the
right.
office and you have to bend the wire, take it out, bend it, put it back in. When you
We all know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm
We've
preaching to the choir. I know.
we've all been taught how to do it. We all know how to do it. But
Absolutely.
let's just say the most common bend I ever do in my practice, even after a decade, because I'm an idiot, right, is that lower 2 out bend on the mesial,
Yeah.
right? Like that is my most common bend in my practice, even after repositions, even after putting it mesially, even after doing everything I'm
Right.
supposed. Because whenever I look at the 2, you're supposed to bond it more mesial, and I always look at it. I'm like, no, that's too mesial. I can't put
Yeah.
it there. I talk myself out of it, and then I end up bending. Instead, everything else looks great. They're locked in class 1 occlusion, cuspid rise, mutually protected. Everything looks great. Take it off, finish your alignment in 3 to 5 aligners in lower or upper, and you're
And
done.
you're done.
Yeah.
And I even, Glenn, I have them change them every 2 weeks. Only wear them after dinner and sleeping. And I call it their trainer retainers, right?
Interesting. You're using it almost like an old school positioner,
Absolutely, 100%.
right? And
Yeah.
weren't those a joy?
Well, they were bulky, right?
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there who've never used a positioner,
Double decker mouth guard that's like a hockey puck.
yeah, think of a boxer's mouth guard,
Yeah.
right? Think of a boxer's mouth guard that you took, and this is where it gets fun, Regina. I've only been in ortho for a decade, and in a decade, this has changed dramatically. When I was in residency, I remember I did one, and basically you did impressions of the upper and lower.
Yep.
You mounted them, and then you did wax setups. Basically,
Right.
you section the teeth, or the lab did. In residency, I did it. Rotate the teeth, put them where they belong in perfect position, and then make them basically a rubber mouth guard that they would bite into every night when they slept
Yeah.
to position the teeth in those positions. So
Yeah.
we're doing the same thing with the
Now,
liner.
in all fairness, a patient that could tolerate that finished well because it
Oh,
let
yeah.
everything settle in well. But I mean, Glenn, I used to hand dip x-rays for the doctor I worked for. Would we ever go back to that?
I remember those days.
Never. So now that we know that there's an easier, more efficient way to do something, why not?
Why not?
And maybe me seeing early in my career some of these major changes, because I remember the one doctor, the older doctor that I worked for, didn't want to invest in a digital x-ray machine when he's got all this other stuff that already works, right? But the amount of time that it took us to process the x-rays, plus the things that could go wrong in that manual processing, and then having to wait and see the patient to tell them what they found on the x-ray at another appointment. We would laugh at that, right? Someday doctors like my daughter are going to laugh at some of the things that we do.
Oh, yeah. I remember the days working in my dad's dental office as a young man, a teenager, sitting in the dark room, with the red light on, tearing apart his AT2000, his Air Techniques AT2000 developer, because the racks would go click, click, click,
Yeah.
and there was a Panorex stuck in the thing.
So you've been there.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that smell.
Yeah.
If I smell that fixer, it
All the
elicits a
chemicals.
visceral reaction. And here's the funny thing: I saw online not long ago. If you're afraid of spending money on digital technology, you can buy an AT2000 refurbished for only $4,000.
Oh my
I would just assume buy a tungsten cube to use as a paperweight instead. If you went through the process of, no pun intended, processing films through a developing machine, or if you were lucky enough to use a quick dip back in the days where, you took a PA or a bite wing, you dipped it for 10 seconds and then water.
You could actually kind of read it.
Yeah, right. If you can remember those days of squinting through the orange cover to see if the X-ray came out okay, only to find out that the corner was open a little bit, so the whole thing got exposed and you had to take it over. Like, these are the things that make you appreciate what we have today in such a huge way. Like, if you've ever worked in a 1-hour photo lab like I did, you really appreciate the digital camera
100%.
and what your phone can do.
Yeah.
And so as we wind down on time here, I want to go back to something I said I would return to, which is your virtual appointments.
Yeah.
Can you explain to everybody there a little bit about what your virtual appointments are and what's really happening here?
Okay. I'm going to just give you kind of an example. Let's say somebody has 48 stages of aligners, okay, for their initial aligner set. We'll do the delivery in the office, and then we set up their first virtual appointment about a week later. Now, a lot of people will say, why do you see them in a week? Well, for a couple reasons. One, they've got questions they didn't even know they had when they were in the office, and they've had a chance to wear them for a week. So you can get on top of any kind of hiccup that might be happening in the process, right? They're not quite sure if they can drink flavored water with them in. It's not soda pop, but it's water with drops. Just these little things that they might want to ask you. Also, the technician that does the virtual appointment with them sets them up on virtual care with the app and goes through that first set of taking the photos. So if there's any hiccup about that at all, any problem with the lighting, how the app is working, anything like that, it gets troubleshooted right away. I call it like the first workout with the personal trainer, right? So that you're doing everything correctly. What we found is that the patients that we do that with are much more likely to send in their monitoring photos. And then we have them do weekly photos when they put in their new tray and we check the fit. I am a fan of both dental monitoring and Invisalign's virtual care. Dental monitoring used to be quite a bit more superior because it had AI, but Align has caught up quite a bit with that. So either one of those products, I think, works quite well. But the bottom line is consistency of the patient using it. So I think the first virtual appointment sets them up for being more consistent with that.
Yeah, I love the idea of it. And
then I see them 12 weeks later, either 12 or 16 weeks later for another quick virtual appointment. I don't, one of the staff does. And then in office at 24, say the middle, because that's when I'll usually do my IPR if I need to. If we don't need IPR or anything, we don't necessarily have to have an in-office visit for that. And then at the end.
By the way, you've always been a leader on technology and the way we use it in practice. You were the first ortho I'd ever met who had an app on the iPhone. I just have to ask because it's been a while. Do you still use the app much, or was it just something you needed to try and, it was good, but I'm just curious to know how that worked out for you.
We do have, like, if you want to make patients want to make an appointment or things like that, they can do that from their phone.
Every now and then when I'm scrolling through my iPhone to try to find something, and I'll type in like MI, I'm looking for something, the Minnesota Orthodontics app pops up, which I think is like, it looks like a rainbow trout, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Funny.
Yeah.
But patients can make appointments. They can send text messages to the office and things like that. So
Right on.
it's kind of cool.
Well, I always appreciate my time with you. It makes me think even harder on some of the things that I'm doing and how to sort of do better with it. But you're a living example that use technology, scale it. Don't sit on the sidelines and say, well, let me pay the most money I can for any particular technology and use it as little as I can. I would assume if somebody feels uncomfortable using aligners at this point and says, I can't get the same result, there's probably just a myriad of places they could learn how to be a better clinician.
Absolutely. There's all kinds of learnings out there. There's great mentors, great teachers. I know when you and I were starting to do more and more aligners, we didn't have that. It was a lot of trial and error. But just like any other kind of emerging technology, the more people that know, and people like yourself and myself that are willing to help other people, we're not guarded with our secrets. We're open books. So
Yeah. And again, I think in this conversation, if anybody wants to know how to do aligners better, I'm not the guy to ask because while I do a lot of aligners, I have so much more I need to learn about how to efficiently get where I want to get. But as I tell every one of my patients who do aligners, if they wear them amazingly well, I look like the greatest orthodontist in America. If they do a terrible job of wearing them, I look like a horrible orthodontist. And so I say, for the sake of my mother being proud of me, please wear your aligners
I'm going to
because I
use
want her to
that one.
think I'm a good orthodontist.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for being here, Regina. I can't wait to see you at any number of meetings that we'll get to share. And best of all, you're going on the epic 2026 fishing trip with me. I'm looking
My
forward to it.
my TC son Noah is super jealous. I wanted to take him, but he said, "Mother, that's right during tourney season because he's a sport fisherman." So
Well, I'll tell everybody out there who's an orthodontist. I recently came back from a week-long fishing trip in Alaska. You fly into Juneau and you take a high-speed ferry for 3 hours, and then you're at this spectacular fishing lodge where the fish you catch are exceptional. They pack them, they fillet them, they vacuum pack them, they freeze them, and they label them, and then they pack them in a box so you take it as checked luggage, and you come home with hundreds of pounds of fish fillet of 6 different varieties. It's king
wow.
salmon, coho salmon, halibut, lingcod, rockfish. I mean, there's tons of stuff. My point is, I put it out there on the Facebook group that in 2026, in July, I want to buy out the lodge. I have no financial interest in this one, but it takes 26 people to take the entire lodge. And I'm going to buy it out anyway, so we'll get people. But if anybody out there is an orthodontist and they want to come, they can bring a spouse, a child, not a 10-year-old, but 12, 13, 14 years old could probably appreciate it. Let me know. Reach out to me on Facebook or hit me up at Glenn at kriegermail.com. And I think we have 6 or 8 spots left if people want to join. So it would be great to have the whole lodge.
Here's a shout out from somebody that had the most fantastic family vacation in Alaska. If you haven't gone, this is an amazing opportunity to see something that will just take your breath away.
Amen. I'd been, before I went about a month ago, I'd been to 48 of the states. There were 2 states I hadn't been to. One was Alaska. The other is Maine. Oddly enough, growing up in New York, I never went to Maine. But if you haven't been to Alaska, this trip is the way to do it because they take really good care of you. The food is amazing. The company will be great. It'll be ortho. And I suspect.
Well, and at that time of year, it's not as cold as people think it is, right?
No.
Of course, I'm from Minnesota now, so cold doesn't bother me, but we were in T-shirts when I went in.
I was not in a T-shirt coming from Dallas. I came from 110 degrees.
Well, you're a lightweight.
Yeah, I am a lightweight, and I don't have a lot of body fat on me, and I was freezing to death. But it was still one of the greatest trips I've ever taken. And if anybody's interested, reach out to me. It'll be a blast. I promise you'll have one of the greatest times. And I'm not going to say this on record per se, but I suspect if it's all orthodontists and dentists and their family, we could probably do a little bit of CE in there on the boats while we're going out to the fishing grounds. And who knows, maybe take this thing as a write-off, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Consult your local CPA. And with that, Regina, I just want to wish you a wonderful day and can't wait till I see you next time.
For sure. It's always a pleasure.